Hey everyone, in this episode, I talked to Katrina Owens. She is the founder of Knockout Directive, which is a brand and publicity company that helps small business owners. And we had an amazing conversation about mindset, about what PR really is, and how can you take small but mighty steps to grow your brand presence and brand awareness. She has amazing services that she offers, but also some great tips and strategies that you can implement in your business right now. We had a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast, where we bridge the gap between the creativity you love and the CEO mindset you need. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, wedding photographer and business educator. Find full show notes and resources at accidentalceopod.com. Let's get into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nada Salvatore, and today I have Katrina Owens with me. She is the founder of Knockout Directive, and she's going to tell us a lot more about all the great things that she does. But first, just welcome Katrina.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell everybody where you are and tell us a little bit about your company, and then we'll go back and tell your whole story of how you got there.
I am based just outside of Vancouver, Canada, so on the West Coast. And Knockout Directive is a brand and publicity consultancy that focuses on personal brands. So I help you develop your personal brand in your unique position. And then I help you understand how you can use public relations to amplify your brand, because we often think that PR is just for like celebrities or big businesses like Coca-Cola and Lululemon, but there's such an amazing opportunity for personal brands, regardless of how big you are or how established you think you are, to start using PR in your business. Most people are using PR without even really knowing that they're doing it. So yeah, that's what I love to focus on and do in my business.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about your story, your accidental CEO story.
Yes, the name of your podcast resonated with me so deeply because I feel like I am an accidental CEO through and through. I actually never even thought I would be an entrepreneur. Owning my own business was not on my radar. And I had a very long corporate career where I never really loved my job. I couldn't relate to people who would get up in the morning excited to go to work. And I kind of wrestled with the idea that okay, maybe that's just a fairy tale. You know, these people that love their job and wake up motivated and excited and feel connected to what they're doing. Maybe that's not real. I can't relate to that. And I had so many different jobs at different organizations, worked with really lovely people, but I just never deeply connected to what I was doing. I was a yoga instructor for a short stint. And as a yoga instructor, you're often encouraged to think about what your purpose is. And I could not answer that question. I was like, I don't know, don't ask me. Haven't figured it out yet. In my corporate journey, I was wrestling with this, no job ever felt perfect, or, I didn't feel like any of them were an amazing fit. And in the background, my partner had started a landscaping company. And he had been in business for about 3 years when we were on a long road trip together. And he kind of put the bug in my ear, like, hey, have you ever thought about doing this, being an entrepreneur, owning your own business, doing your own thing? And I was like, absolutely not. No. What would I do? And that seems like a lot of work. And he's like, well, imagine if you worked this hard for yourself. Imagine if all this hard work you're giving to your employer. At the time I was working for an employer that was quite demanding and had me doing all these different things. It's imagine if you channeled that into your own business, what the result could be. I didn't believe in myself, just to be totally blank. I did not believe in myself and my abilities to actually just go out on my own and do it. That was the long and short of it. There was actually this profound moment in our conversation where he had an old friend who had gone on to do amazing things and had recently had a billboard in Times Square. And he was like, imagine if you, that could be you. And I'm like, no, it couldn't. No, it couldn't. I burst into tears, in this car ride. It was in that moment that I realized, I had such a deep-rooted insecurity in myself that I was like, that couldn't be me. That's great for other people. And, there you go. So we had that conversation. And then I went back to work and I started to think about like, oh, what could my company look like? Or what could I do? Because now I'm thinking about it. And then, I didn't know that this was going to unfold. But in the background, I had received an amazing job offer from one job, taken it back to my employer and had said, hey, I don't want to leave my job here because I really love it. But, what can we do to kind of match this really shiny job offer that, I've received, and how can we, find a way to meet in the middle? And there wasn't a way to meet in the middle. From then on, it had kind of soured the relationship. Unfortunately, I had thought I was doing the right thing. Turns out maybe I still believe it was the right thing. Obviously I wasn't meant to take that shiny job offer, but it did make me look at my relationship with that job and that employer in such a different light.
How dare you advocate for yourself?
Thought I was doing all the right things. I'm like, okay, perfect. Like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. So I'm just going to take this job offer to my employer, be so transparent. Like, and it really did not pan out how they tell you it does. Yeah. So in that moment, there were a couple of conversations that just didn't sit right with me. And I just felt like there was no coming back from how I had felt about my job at that point. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave and kind of take care of myself, which I'd never done. I've never jumped from a job and had a gap, or I always had very stable employment for my entire adult life. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to take a leap and see what happens. And I left, and that's kind of like day one. So I found myself starting up a company when honestly, even 3 months before that, I never would have thought that was my future.
So, was it during that conversation that you had the realization that things were just not aligned for you in that job? How was that, insight that led you to entrepreneurship?
It was that conversation that really kind of hit the nail on the head for me, just sealed the deal. And then upon reflection, there were so many minor incidents or little things that had happened throughout my tenure at this job that, maybe I could see were red flags, but I didn't give them that much credit. And, it's funny because after I left, I told my partner all these different things. And he was like, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I would have told you that these were things to, and I was like, I just kind of told myself, this is just the nature of having a job. This is the nature of having a corporate job. These things happen. This is just life. I had just accepted that that was what my reality had to be. I think that was from watching my parents have high stress jobs where they were like, this is just how it is. And so I was conditioned to believe that's how it had to be.
That happens a lot. That's what we see happening in our family and the people around us, and we think that you just have to put your head down and keep working and stop challenging the system.
Exactly. I'm like, you know what, you're being too sensitive, you're being too emotional. And so I just kind of blocked those things out and just told myself, this is just the nature of having a job, which is terrible.
I come from healthcare before I went into photography, and I've always had these internal battles within myself when I was there. But now that I stepped away from it and still hear things from my husband, who is still in the same kind of arena, it's a lot easier for me to see it and be like, that is not acceptable. Why are you putting up with that? But I understand that when you're in it, you're like, you just have to keep going, and there are other things that are more urgent, that other little fires that you have to put out versus fighting the system. So it's not easy, but at least you recognized it and found the space to step out and start your new thing.
Exactly. It was all meant to be. But it is really funny how we look back, and I think we're conditioned to believe that we have to grind it out, and life is hard and your job is hard, and the harder you work or the more you achieve hard things, the better your life will eventually be. And I don't think that's the right way to look at it.
I always laugh about how the acceptable answer to how are things going? How's your business? You got to say, oh, it's busy. It's so crazy. And it's people expect you to say you're busy and it's crazy and it's just so hard. And if you say anything else, it's like, oh, what's wrong? It's like this expectation of we should be working so hard all the time and being miserable and just grinding, like I said, the hustle culture. So it's just interesting to see how that's the acceptable answer and the expected answer when you talk about your business and or your job, your work in general.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Actually, now upon reflection, I've caught myself saying that a couple times recently.
Oh yeah, we all do. Yep. So I used to answer people like, how are you doing? You busy? I'm like, I have the right amount of work. Like
Yeah.
everything is good. You're like, oh, okay. I was like, busy doesn't equal good.
Yes. No, I agree. I'm going to adapt that. I think that's
Yeah.
a great way to put it.
So, what were some of the initial challenges that you faced when starting the Knockout Directive, especially considering your transition from the quote unquote secure job to the uncertainties of running your own business?
Yeah, for me, it was really this like insecurity that I had living inside of me. Like, I just couldn't believe that this is what I was like now doing. I couldn't believe that I could like be more successful as an entrepreneur than I had been in my corporate career. It was all like, I would say my struggles were like 99% inside my head. And now I know better. And now I can advise others that, hey, all of these kind of limitations we've put on ourselves and the things that we think, they're just the stories that we're literally telling ourselves and they're not necessarily true. But at the time I didn't know. And so I was really challenged with not only setting up a business and like getting clients. I'd found a way to do that. I'm pretty well connected in my community. I was able to just, grassroots start to secure clients just through my network. So that was fine. But when it came to actually like showing up as a business owner, creating an online presence was very hard. I resisted for actually a very long time. I don't think I even started an Instagram. I'd started an Instagram, but I didn't post on it for probably the first 6 months of my business. Like, I could not see myself stepping into this actual like CEO role and owning my space and like showing up as someone that people wanted to work with. I thought that everything was going to be really hard, which I guess now we see the theme.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's very relatable to a lot of people that come from maybe a more corporate job into owning their own business. I struggle with having social media. Like before that, my social media was, I mean, I fought it for as long as I could
Yes.
too. Like I didn't want to have it when I was in graduate school, but my whole family's in another country, so that's their way to kind of keep up with what we're doing, and I have kids, and that's they see the kids, they see what's going on. So I was like, fine, I'll have a Facebook account. Like, I would get one. And then starting my own business, very quickly realized I just had to get over myself and get going and start, getting into my role is, like you said, as a business owner to market and advertise for my business. So, but I'm sure it's something that a lot of people can relate to.
I think so. And honestly, it's what I talk about a lot now when I meet with business owners or educate them about PR. This mindset that we let hold us back affects us in so many ways. And for me, I actually noticed it come out in how I would introduce myself to others. So I would actually say, if someone asked me what I did, I would say, oh, I'm just a marketing consultant. I'm like, what? Like, that is, and it's not like I said it once. I said it a lot of times. Like, now we're just discounting like what we're doing entirely. So I've eradicated that from my vocabulary, but it's funny how like these things kind of, they bleed into all areas of your life and how you talk about yourself. If that's how I was introducing myself to others, that's how they were going to see me.
Mhm. Yeah, we don't realize these things, right?
No.
It takes some courage to step into that role, and my I love my kids because kids are just they see things as they are, and they're very like take it face value. And my daughters love to say that I am the CEO of 5 companies. I was like,
Oh, I
"You
love
think I'm
that.
right? I am. You are right." I love it.
That is the ultimate like
Yeah.
hype squad.
And they love counting. Like, "So how many businesses do you have, mommy? Like, how many
Oh my
businesses you're the
gosh.
CEO of?" Because they wanna say it out loud, and they wanna share it, and hopefully that would inspire them to, be
Yeah.
proud of owning their own business one day, so
Oh, absolutely. That is very cool.
yeah. So you mentioned that your partner really saw some potential in you as a business owner before you even did, which is, happens to a lot of people too, but I think is a very interesting point to talk about. How did that belief kind of influence your journey from working in that agency to deciding to go all in your business?
Yeah, I think the fact that he believed in me enabled me to make that like very abrupt decision to leave my job and start my business. I have to give him so much credit because I didn't tell him that I was going to leave my job. One day I just decided, and I don't typically make loaded decisions like that so fast, but I had a conversation at work that didn't sit right with me, and in my head, I was like, today is the day. And I came home and I was like, I don't think I'm going back. And he didn't even flinch. There was no like, okay, but how are you going to pay the mortgage? We had just bought a house together, our very first home. Like, I think we had moved in like 3 months before that. And so there could have been like a lot of questions, and he didn't ask a single one. He was just like, okay, I believe in you to make the right choice, and I believe in you to do this. So, let me know what you need, because he helped me through some of the technical stuff of setting up a company and what do I need to kind of get started. But the like silent support was the strongest, because he didn't ever make me feel like I had to have things figured out. He just supported and knew that, from the day that I left that job, there was never a time when I couldn't contribute to the household or pay a bill. I had always figured it out. I always found a way to hustle and grind and build my business. So I think for me, that really was what I needed to continue to carry on. I knew that he was there, and that if things got tough, he would, we could have that conversation, but we never needed to. So that was like probably exactly what I needed. I'm not sure, had I been alone, like living alone or single, I mean, this journey probably would have unfolded so differently, because like he really was the catalyst. But in that moment, like it really was his silent support that helped me through those initial months.
So your consultancy focuses a lot on helping like small businesses leverage the power of public relations. So what do you think PR is often overlooked by small businesses, and how do you convince them of its value?
The first thing, it's just become this like very like buzzword PR. So like we think about like, Samantha Jones on Sex and the City was a publicist, and she has a very certain personality and was like living this really glamorous life. And then we think about, I'm from a generation that watched like The Hills and Laguna Beach, and there was a lot of talk about PR, like, and what that looked like at that time. So it really molded a generation's idea of what a publicist looks like. Celebrities, Hollywood, red carpets. People hear the word publicist really when it pertains to like a celebrity going through like a crisis. Like, what statement did their publicist put out? And now, funnily enough, the entire like Gen Z thinks that PR is just PR packages. So like when influencers receive like gifts from brands, like PR packages, the amount of people that I get sending me like, how can I get PR packages? I'm like, that's not really what I do. So people don't really know what PR is. Like baseline, there's so many like, I don't know, misconceptions that it just has no like clear definition for a lot of us. So that's why we think it's not for us, because we see like Hollywood, influencers, all of that, and we just think, okay, well, can't be for me. So how I convince small businesses and personal brands that it is for them is first by showing them all the things that they're already doing that contributes to PR. Because PR is so many things. It's client relations, community relations, industry. Like there's so many different branches, and every business owner I speak to is at least doing one thing. At the baseline, they're at least like going to events or emailing their client list, or they have a social media presence. All of those things are, a part of this public relations umbrella. So I start there. And then I say, hey, what if I told you you could start to get yourself in front of new audiences where you're not relying on these like constant referrals or like having to play with the algorithm? So for example, a concept I love to use is this: when you're on social media, you are speaking to an audience, creating content that's shown to people who follow you and who like your content. And then maybe if you're lucky, the algorithm then pushes out that content to other people that are connected to you through followers or hashtags, or somehow the algorithm is like bringing you together. But by showing up on a podcast or getting published in an article or starting to connect with people outside of this circle, you now put yourself in front of a brand new audience. So you're kind of stimulating the algorithm in like a new way and like really expanding your reach. So that's kind of how I describe brand awareness. So it's growing your business faster. The other part of PR that is my favorite part is building brand authority. So that's when you can become a leader in your industry, like a thought leader or an expert, because now you show up speaking on podcasts or being interviewed or speaking at an event, and you're now positioned as the expert in your field because you're speaking authoritatively on a topic. And that allows you to increase your prices. Typically, you're going to book up faster because now you have a long list of leads. Having a wait list is a great way to show that you're in demand. So brand authority is how we start to like scale our growth and build a bigger business. So brand awareness and brand authority are these two things that PR kind of does for our business. And that is how I convince someone that they need to start integrating some of these tactics because they're so accessible. We just don't know what they are.
Hey, wedding photographers and event planners. Say goodbye to time chaos with Timeline Pro. Our app turns your workflow into a breeze, letting you create and customize stunning wedding day timelines in minutes. Share them with clients and vendors for instant feedback, all within the app. No more endless emails and coordinating headaches. With our easy-to-use templates, shot list tracker, and sunset timings, your planning becomes as joyful as the events you're crafting. Dive into a stress-free planning experience and make every wedding a masterpiece. Download Timeline Pro now and transform the way you plan weddings and events. For more, visit timelineproapp.com. Can you describe maybe a success story where your PR strategies really helped impact a client's brand presence and business growth?
I have a recent one that is very, very fun to talk about. So she's a client that worked with me on a personal brand strategy. So we didn't even dive deep into like PR at this point. But when you want to start engaging with PR activities, you have to have a baseline strong brand. So we made some adjustments. She already had a great following in her community. We just made some adjustments on how she could continue to activate in her community by hosting more events, going to more events, and then using the channels that she already had in her arsenal and just being a bit more strategic with the messaging and how she communicated herself. In addition to that, we started to kind of put this professional element behind her brand. So she didn't have a ton of professional photography before that. She had a website, but she wasn't totally convicted on its use. It wasn't professionally done. And I said, we need to build the business that you want to have. So invest in the professional photography, create a website that makes you feel like you've reached this next level, and then see how you start showing up to events and letting people into your world. Because if you can direct them now to your social media, where you're consistently posting high quality content and engaging with your audience, and then they go to your website to learn more, and there's also this amazing brand presence over there, that's really going to start opening you up to new opportunities, organic PR opportunities, where you don't actually have to pitch yourself or do outreach. They start coming to you. And so some of the results that you saw in just 30 days of starting to get really strategic in this implementation, she sold out an entire workshop just through her email list. She never even launched it on social media. She just sold it out in 48 hours via email. She gained, I think, 60 followers that were people that wanted to be in her community and learn from her. She had new registrations from clients that had maybe taken one of her courses in the past and had kind of fallen off. They were signing up for things again because they started to see her popping up and actually talking about her offers more frequently. And, she started to go to different events and community gathering places where she made connections for future venues and places where she could now like start to build her brand up again in these different spaces in front of new audiences. So that was like grassroots PR focused on the personal brand and what can you do to just like start getting your name out there a little bit more. And the results were so impactful. So imagine when she starts to layer on going on podcasts and actually doing media outreach. The results are going to be insane. I can't wait for that.
What is your favorite PR strategy?
For me, it's a tie between becoming a public speaker or using podcasts to grow your brand. Both of these things, and I guess they're kind of similar in ways, because I think if someone can show up on a podcast, they can also be a speaker. But I think what I'm finding with a lot of business owners is people really want to be asked to speak at an event. Like, I think for a lot of us, even if we're a bit introverted, or even if we like don't know what we want to talk about yet, when we see our competitors or like people in the industry we admire, it's typically someone that has more like a bigger brand presence who's getting invited to speak at things. And I think a lot of us have this like deep rooted, like, why not me? And so I love to teach others on how that can be them. And it actually starts with treating your brand as a brand that, is a speaker. So like a lot of it is just positioning yourself as one, build it and they will come. But we think we have to have all of this proof that we are one before we can start positioning ourselves as it. But it's a total opposite. And that's a hard thing to overcome. But that's actually, love podcasts. And I think they play into that. But that really is like my favorite strategy, because it's showing that like anyone can do this. Like really anyone can.
Yeah, if you have something to contribute, you should definitely be looking into doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your ideal client, you talked about maybe women and between 30s and 40s, passionate about aesthetic, want to grow long-term sustainable brand. How do you tailor your services to meet the unique needs of this demographic?
It was actually how I started. So one of the core services I offer right now is like a publicity coaching program. So this is where, I come up with a custom strategy for the client and then I help them implement it. This actually, like, if you would have told me a year ago that this would be something I was offering, I wouldn't actually like, I'd say, what? Who wants that? Because we think, at least in my industry, working in PR, we think the only way to do things is to be this traditional publicist on retainer. So a company pays you and you do all of the outreach, etc. But when you are a small business, you have the power to do all of these things yourself. And it's actually more impactful for you to do them yourself as opposed to hiring a publicist or a team. Because now we're like adding so many layers, we're like adding operating expenses, and it's just not necessary. PR at the core is relationship building. So if you can just have a little bit of strategy and understand how you provide value to other people's audiences, it's just about talking to some of these contacts, whether it's a podcast host or a journalist or an event coordinator. It's understanding how to position your brand to attract these kind of opportunities. So when they come, so when someone inevitably asks, hey, I love what you're doing on social media. Are you open to speaking at an event? You can clearly say, yeah, I would love to. This is what I usually talk about. And then you provide that and it's an easy yes, eliminates the back and forth. You're really clear on what you're doing and what you offer and how you're different. So that's really how I serve my target audience now, because I actually know like these women do not need to spend money on a publicist. They don't need to. They have all the tools that they need to execute their own PR. They just need to know how or where to start or what it looks like. So really, the program actually started because I worked with a client who wanted to work with me and wanted to do PR. She knew she didn't have the budget to actually hire me as a publicist, and she encouraged me to find a way for us to work together. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I could like do this and then like train you on how to do it. And she's like, absolutely, yes. And she saw so much success from that. So I have to give her major credit, because she really is like the cheerleader of the program. She's given me great testimonials, and I just think like, yeah, it really came full circle.
I love that. So speaking opportunities, That and some of the press features that you mentioned are very pivotal when it comes to, the approach of building your client's brand. Can you share maybe some tips on how small businesses can secure those opportunities without having a large PR budget?
So I always say start with becoming famous in your own backyard. So when we're service providers, or even if we have like an e-commerce business where people can buy online, we think we need to go broad right away. But what you actually want to do is start to nurture the network that's closest to you. So that's actually by showing up at events, sharing energy and space with people in person so they can get a feel for you, and really focusing on your local media because they are the champions of small business. Local media is looking for feel good stories right now. Pretty much any client I've ever had that I've pitched to local media has eventually secured either like a newspaper feature or a TV spot. It's not like, not to be like, it's not that hard, but it's not that hard. So I really encourage, although we run service-based businesses or online businesses, don't forget about all the opportunity that really is just right outside your door, and really focus on nurturing that and becoming known for your thing in your state or even in your city or whatever it is. Like, start small, and then you'll see how you can start to branch off, and you'll get more comfortable pitching larger outlets, or showing up on shows that are in a different country. That comfortability will come, but really is by starting small and detainable, which really is your local news media, going to local events, and like becoming a stakeholder in your local community.
How do you recommend people reaching out to their local media outlets? Is there should they have like a written pitch? Should they have like a speaker page or some kind of media kit, something like that?
Yeah, there's lots of pieces that you can have. Really, what's going to get seal the deal is the pitch. So I think about one art exhibit client I had last year. We had secured a TV spot, and they did not have a fancy website. They did not have a speaker page. They actually had like no marketing assets. They were an older couple that just loved what they did, and they had a beautiful story. So based on that pitch, we secured local news coverage in print and on TV. And that was just based on like telling their story in a concise way that the local media wanted to pick up because they knew like there was something really special here. When you are a personal brand and you want to focus on your long-term brand building, starting to build out these pieces like, your social media presence, a professional website, having a media kit, those things are important, but they're not the most important part. The most important part is understanding your story and your value and how you can pitch that. I mean, I didn't start setting up a more professional website or investing in, more and more photography until I was like, hey, I'm going to take this business seriously. But I had so many opportunities before I had any of that because I was able to really communicate my value, and I was really focused on creating a really supportive network of people that I knew and would happily refer me to opportunities. So you don't need all the fancy bits. We let those things like get in our way because we're like, it needs to be perfect before I start. And it doesn't.
Done is better than perfect anytime, any
Exactly.
day.
Exactly. That's my motto these days. And I used to be a perfectionist. So,
Yeah, we're recovering perfectionists.
yes, I love that term. Totally.
So, what advice would you give to somebody maybe at the beginning of their entrepreneur journey, especially when they're faced with those fears and insecurities that we talked about a little bit earlier in the episode? What was your way to kind of overcome it and start your business?
Yeah, for me, I really encourage any entrepreneur to find support, whether that's a coach or more of a group mentorship program. Having neutral support is very, very important. We think we can lean on our partners or friends or family to give us this like business advice, and maybe we can, but it's really beneficial to have someone who is slightly removed from your personal situation, supporting you, advising you, and being a cheerleader. For me, I knew that my brain was going to be the thing to take me down if I didn't get a control of my thoughts. I've done all this work probably for almost a year now. I've done, different coaching programs and mentorship programs, and I I know that I'm much better at recovering from these moments of like anxiety or doubt or fear. The time I spend in those places is so much shorter than it was like a year ago or even 2 years ago when I was still at an actual job.
Yeah, I love that. That's why I really enjoy coaching on my, photo biz education business. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, which is my favorite thing to do. I think coming from having the background of psychology, a little bit of my background in healthcare and teamwork and all that, I really enjoy mindset combined with strategies when it comes to business and understanding how important it is to work on your own mindset and blocks and all these things are keeping you from, growing your business because you cannot grow your business without growing yourself at the same time.
Yes,
Just absolutely
totally.
impossible. You cannot overlook it, which is why I really enjoy that one-on-one time with my clients.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way when I do my publicity coaching. It's like doing publicity and like opening yourself up to be more of a public figure. There's a lot of mindset work that has to happen, on so many different levels. And I agree. That's for me like the most gratifying part is watching someone really like claim their spotlight. It's so exciting.
So let's talk about money a little bit. You've managed to replace your salary very fast and grow your
Yes.
company to six figures in the first year, which is amazing. Congratulations. What were some of the key strategies and decisions that you feel like contribute to that very rapid success for you?
The first one was I said yes to everything. Any client that was willing to work with me, I was like, yep, but like, here you go. Here are my packages. I probably said yes to things that, maybe I had no business saying yes to because I started, kind of venturing into things that maybe I wasn't the most experienced in. But I think that was such an important learning experience for me because it helped me streamline and focus on what I really wanted to. And in the beginning, it gave me the capital that I needed, the revenue that I needed to at least like continue on. I think in the beginning, if we get too focused on like, I just want to sell this one thing, well, unfortunately, if the demand is not there, if you haven't marketed it, if it's not actually like what your clients are looking for, how are you going to pay your bills? So I grew really fast and I got burnt out really fast, but I actually wouldn't trade that time for anything because I got to a place where I had built everything up. I felt comfortable in my financial situation, and then I was able to pare it down. I was able to say, okay, you know what, now I don't do this. So if I get a client asking, the answer is no. And I don't work with this type of client anymore. I know I can generally tell on a discovery call, like if it's going to be a good fit or not. And if it's not, I know that and I listen to the spidey sense. So I think by going like hard and fast up front taught me a lot. It gave me the revenue I needed to kind of carry on. And now I've been able to streamline, maintain that revenue and continue to grow it, but in a way where my business doesn't feel like it's in charge of me, like I'm in charge of the business.
Very good. Yeah, I feel like that also speaks to the concept of the need to niche down or no need to niche down right away. So I do believe that maybe at some point is important to really, niche down and narrow down a little bit your offerings and your services 100%. But there's absolutely nothing wrong, and I 100% recommend doing a little bit of everything on the beginning because how you know that you're not gonna like something if you don't try? Because I've many times in my life said I wouldn't do something, and then there I was doing
Uh-huh.
it, thinking that, "No, I'm not gonna like that. That's not where I'm
Mhm.
gonna be going." And until you actually are doing it, you might find out you actually have a lot of skills that makes you really good at something you never thought. So I
Yes.
would say try everything you can in the beginning. Very important to get that capital, in, not saying no to things right away. I agree that's a great way to kind of get started and get some cushion to be able to then start narrowing down your path a little bit more and be more mindful of what you want to focus on, as you continue to grow and define your brand. So,
Yeah, and I think just like knowing that you don't have to have it all figured out right away. Like we all need to give ourselves some grace and like I mean, yeah, don't wait until it's perfect. Like, just go and try and learn from it. Like, if we get caught up in the details, it's going to prevent us from moving forward, and it's just going to slow the growth. So I just, yeah, don't overthink it.
You should never have it all figured out. It's what I
Exactly. There's the fun in having it all figured out.
Yes, continuous learning is definitely one of my, one of my values that I feel like it helps me be a better business owner. You're
Yeah,
always trying to learn and make it better. It's not, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's like, if it's not broke, it could be even better.
totally. Yes, I love
So now
that.
that you're living your dream as an entrepreneur, how do you balance the demands of running the Knockout Directive with maintaining mental health, well-being, and considering, especially considering your past experiences with burnout?
Yeah, I've definitely tried to optimize my schedule. So I quickly learned that in my job, it gets very call heavy. We want to do Zoom calls all the time. So I realized if I'm going to do deep thinking in strategy, I can't do that on the same day when I'm going to be on Zoom calls or answering the phone or texting or like distracted. So now I maintain very strict scheduling boundaries where it's like, okay, there are certain days of the week allocated to being on calls. And then there are days when like I don't even leave the house. I don't like, no one sees my face. And that's when the deep thinking gets done. So I felt like that was a great way to make some optimizations early on when I felt like nothing was actually getting done. And then what I've recently introduced is I actually scaled my schedule back a little bit. So I only spend 4 days a week working on client stuff. And that's like strategies or, for my publicist retainer clients doing outreach, all of that. I reserve an extra weekday for me to work on the business because I have like goals and projects that I want to do, but I appreciate those things don't get done on like a Saturday when I'm tired and I just want to watch TV. So I started to treat myself like I was a client and like really cherish that time. Like it can be really tempting to want to give up that time, especially when, I recently had to start a wait list for my business because I reached my capacity and can be tempting. Like I see dollar signs like any other person. I'm like, if I just give up this one day this week to do that project, like, oh, an extra couple grand, like who doesn't want that? But I can't. Like I am like, no, no shiny pennies. Like that is not a work day. That is not a day. Like maybe you answer a couple emails just to like get them off your brain, but we're not doing client work. I am the client. I'm taking myself as seriously as I would take any of my clients' time. So that's really been like a pivotal moment for me is like carving out extra time. Like people call it a CEO day. I call it a KO day.
There you go.
But yeah, it's needed. It really is. It's like changed how I approach my business. I take it a bit more seriously now.
Very good. I love that concept, making sure that you see yourself as one of your own clients and you give yourself the same respect and boundaries that you would. That's a really, really good concept. So tell everybody where they can find you whenever you open that wait list again. Maybe if they want to work with you, they want to get on your wait list and learn more about what you have to offer.
You can get on the wait list anytime. I'm still doing discovery calls. So if this does pique anyone's interest, I'm always happy to chat and get people lined up. But I am Knockout Directive on Instagram, and you can find more information about me on knockoutdirective.com. And then I do dabble in LinkedIn. I'm Katrina Owens over there. But Instagram really is that great way to connect with me. And yeah, I look forward to meeting anyone who might be interested in learning more about PR.
Awesome. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. There's a lot of great, interesting concepts and strategies for our audience today. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Perfect. And I see all of you next week on another episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nada Salvatore, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is us a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.